debate watch party held in Waukegan, Illinois, just north of Chicago, played host to a number of candidates as well as community activists and organizers.
I am very encouraged by the progressives here in Illinois, being with the Illinois Bernie-crats. I came from Texas. We had quite a strong contingency of progressives down there, and they seem a little bit more energetic and invigorated up here in Cook County, McHenry County, and also now up here in Lake County. And look forward to building a network of Illinois Bernie-crat groups from the different counties to start working together in a coordinated effort to get Bernie elected, which is my dream and my goal.
So I'm here with Colleen Levine. She is chair of Our Revolution Buffalo Grove, a brand new group here in Illinois that has grown tremendously in short order. So Colleen, tell me a little bit about your success and why you think your group is getting so much traction so quickly.
So I would say the success of Our Revolution Buffalo Grove is directly related to the pain that the average worker is feeling in the current system today. Our growth is a direct relation to the corporate control, the lack of values for workers' rights, the systemic corruption that we're living in today. I think the average person has been spurred by the gross inequalities that exist in the system today, and in a huge part by the corporate tone that's been set in the media about resistance to public policies that are supported by the vast majority of people, things like Medicare for All and a Green New Deal. We recognize people are dying, and we're spurred on by the losses of our own people in the community to move forward and really make change, and that's, I think, why we've been growing.
So you were also recently selected as a Bernie delegate. Tell me what that means for you.
I can't tell you how excited I am to be a delegate representative for Bernie Sanders. Our Revolution Buffalo Grove fights every single day for the policies that Bernie Sanders supports. And personally, I was moved deeply by Senator Sanders' campaign over 2015 and 2016, just speaking to the plight of the common person about what it's like to have medical debt, what it's like to go to work every day, and what trying to make ends meet in America feels like in a system that is completely rigged and corrupted by the 1%. So I think that's been a big drive for me as a political activist, and that drive has gotten me more and more engaged in politics and has led to wanting to really represent Senator Sanders at the National Convention, because we need voices for working people in every place of power.
There's this idea out there that progressivism is a far left fringe, especially since every Democrat is claiming to be a progressive. I think even Brad Schneider claims to be a progressive and has appropriated the language of the progressive movement when he says healthcare is a human right. Of course, the thing is that I'm a progressive, Bernie Sanders is a progressive, and we're actually the center. We are the political center. What we have, though, is a conservative party and a far right-wing party. And we're supposed to, if we're following my congressman's lead, we're supposed to find that magical middle place between proto-fascists and corporate conservatives. And I know pragmatism has become some kind of dirty word in politics because it implies the sellouts that we have dominating politics. But I went to SIU, I studied philosophy, and pragmatism to me means John Dewey and democratic socialism, and that's pragmatism. That is splitting the difference between the left and the right. Medicare for All is not government takeover of health care. It's single-payer public funding of health care paying into a private system. It's the government paying for a private system. The hospitals, the doctors, it's the same healthcare system. It's just all of a sudden more accessible. We're actually creating new markets. But because of everybody having access, now hospitals won't be disappearing from rural and inner city areas. And they've already disappeared. Now they can return because as people will have a way to get healthcare access that's free at the point of delivery with no co-pays, no deductibles, no premiums. People can get the healthcare they need.
So we
Yes,
keep
the big "how are we going to pay for Medicare for all" question. Now my answer is that there's a lot of ways to do it, and I would say raising taxes is not a way we need to go. Modern monetary theory gives us an alternative, and there are some very clear examples in the recent past that show that we could just authorize the spending and just do it, like the way we just did it in Iraq, or the way we just bailed out the banks, and we did those things and lowered taxes. We can boost the economy by doing that. It's going to create more spending money, and it's going to lift 20% of the people under the poverty line over the poverty line instantly, because out-of-pocket medical expenses account for 20% of the people below the poverty line. So, and yes, we could raise taxes on the wealthiest and on the corporations, and that's another issue, but it is not necessary to raise any taxes to cover this. And it really does pay for itself. And like I said to our congressman, it's cheaper to have Medicare for all. We're eliminating paying a great overhead cost in CEO bonuses and shareholder profits. So we already have the money in the system, and we're reducing the cost. I think when politicians can't say to you with a straight face, well, we're taking a system that's cheaper, but we can't make it happen. We can't figure out how we're going to pay for a system that costs less than what we have now. What we have now is we're racing towards 25% of our GDP in total healthcare costs, and we're the only wealthy nation on earth where the birth mother mortality rate is going up. That's not a characteristic of wealthy nations. Say, well, we're a very wealthy, powerful nation, and our birth mother mortality rate is just climbing. We're the only wealthy nation where that's happening, and our infant mortality rate is piss poor. There are many developing countries that have better outcomes with healthcare, and every country that has a universal health care plan is producing better outcomes for their whole population.
So our community is a community that's constantly disenfranchised, and I don't feel as though we have a voice. And that was clear to me when I joined the fight for environmental justice. We didn't have a voice at the table. We still don't have a voice at the table. Even though the incumbent is taking on a big role, they're not reaching out to the community, those who are the most affected. And that's why I took on this really uphill battle, is what I've been told. But the issue is that not only are we not being heard, and we're being disenfranchised, and there are large portions of the community that doesn't feel like they're being reached. At least that's what they're telling me while I'm knocking on the doors right now. I'm also seeing that there is a lot of industry interest in our campaign funding within our local elected official circle. And I'm disappointed. And that's why I've pledged not to take any industry money, because I want to represent the people's voice, and I don't want anything holding me back. And that's why I'm doing this.
So Representative Mayfield, who has served for quite a number of years, is well loved in this district, yet she declined to support rent control measures introduced by local progressives, Will Guzzardi, and others. Can you talk to that particular issue and how you feel about rent control for this district?
We are at a point where we are expanding our entertainment area, our entertainment industry. And this is against the people's voice. We need to have assurances for our community that they are not going to be taxed and overburdened, especially with their rent. I know my husband and I paid 60% in rent when we were here for 8 years. And I am not the only case. We are not the only case. This is what I hear continuously over and over, and we need assurances that we're not going to be run out of our city, out of our homes. We are already dealing with separation at a federal level. We don't need more insecurity in our only safe place, and that's our home. I stand firmly with lifting the ban on rent control. Specifically in this district, our district, the 60th district, we are an environmental justice community. And what that means is that we live, we play, and we work in an area that has historical toxins and has current toxins being emitted. And it's been allowed by loopholes set at a federal level and at a state level, and it bleeds into our state legislation as well. I highly support the Green New Deal, not only because we are not dealing with just one thing, but we are dealing with cumulative effects. We have cumulative impacts environmentally here in this community, and those impacts are affecting the foundation of our future. They are affecting cognitive development. They're affecting musculoskeletal. This is our children that we're talking about, and this is our future that we're talking about. And we don't have an equal grounding because we don't have proper restrictions and regulations at a federal and at a state level for communities such as ours.
So what we've been dealing with here in Illinois is an issue with ethylene oxide, which is a colorless, odorless gas, which is also extremely carcinogenic. Its carcinogenicity was actually upgraded in 2016 from a possible carcinogen to a known carcinogen. What happens is that here in Lake County, we have two facilities that we're dealing with. One is Medline, which is a medical sterilizer, and the other is Vantage, which is a manufacturing facility that uses ethylene oxide as an intermediate chemical. So last legislative session, we had two bills that were introduced, SB 1852 and SB 1854. They started out as an omnibus bill, but they were split. 1852 was to deal with the medical sterilization industry. 1854 was to deal with manufacturing. Now, what happened was, while these were split, the other thing that happened was a lot of the teeth was actually pulled from them during the last rounds of amendments before they were actually passed. They were pushed through because we were reaching the end of the legislative session. After that, there was no real political will to do anything more with this issue in Illinois, until Diana decided that she was going to run for Illinois State House because nothing was being done about this. And it was our community, it was our population, it was our children, it was our family, it was our parents, it was our friends that were being killed and sickened by this. So she decided to throw her hat into the ring because nothing was being done. Less than 2 weeks after she decided to do that, there was a bill that was introduced that was written in 8 days. It was HB 3888, and it is being hailed as a elimination of ethylene oxide. But the truth is, it's not really an elimination of ethylene oxide. And it's not this for a number of technical reasons, which I'm not going to get into right now. But the main thing that bothers me about it is that it has no real scientific basis behind the limits that it's setting. It has a lot of numbers that are very arbitrary. And when we asked the person who wrote this bill, why are these numbers the numbers that you chose, we were answered that they were estimates, that they were kind of best guesses. They were not based on the EPA's best science. What we have always tried to do, and what I have always tried to do since getting involved in this fight, is to make sure that everything and anything that I am suggesting is based on the best available science that we have. And And we do have very good science. We have something called the IRIS report put out by the United States EPA, which is based on over 10 years of solid research that they put together based on epidemiological data going back decades, that has the best recommendations for the health of our communities and the health of our people. And this is what's being pushed against at the federal level. So at the state level, we have bills being introduced that are using estimates and guesses that don't really have the best scientific basis. And at the federal level, we have organizations that are pushing back against the best EPA science based on decades of EPA's science that's been put together and compiled into the IRIS report. So at the end of this month, I'm actually flying out, the Union of Concerned Scientists is flying me out to Washington, D.C. to talk about how important it is for Congress at a federal level to follow the best available science that the EPA has put forward. At the state level, we also have to push for the best science that's available in any legislation that's going to be moving forward. Now, this HB 3888, I'm going to be on a call tomorrow to talk with the author of the bill and talk about amendments that we would like to see added to this bill that take into account the best science, the best available science that we have, and also just general science. The person that wrote this bill, for all of their good intentions, is not a scientist, is not a trained scientist. And as such, there are important holes in the bill as it's written that do not take into account the unique kind of chemistry that ethylene oxide has. And so these are two things on parallel fronts where we are continuing to push to keep our community safe using the best available science that we have.
Real Progressives will keep you updated on the ethylene oxide issue both at a federal and state level and provide follow-up details as this story develops.